Okay guys, today we're going to work on a booklet that's a little longer, 12 pages. It's going to look something like this. It's about this content, which was my master's thesis on Bauhaus. Only we're going to make it a simple 12-page document, which means that it is 3 of these 8.5 by 11 pages folded in half and printed front and back, which equals a 12-page document. So let's talk about how we would set a document like that up. So if you go to the print, you'll see there's letter, legal, tabloid, and letter half. So this is how we'd set that up. The orientation would actually be portrait. The size is this letter half. We'll click on that and it'll fill it in for us. And now I'm going to show you something we haven't talked about yet, which is the primary text frame. So we have a lot of text for this document. We have all this text. So we're not going to be able to just set this in a box off the side and feed from it. You're going to have to automatically run the text through. So there's 2 ways of doing that. So here I can say I definitely want facing pages because this is a folding booklet. I'm only going to put 1 page right now because I want a primary text frame. And what that means is that it's going to put a text box on each page that fits within the margin set up on the master page. So let's look at this. So this only gives us 1 page, but if we go into preferences to type, and what we want to do is on this type panel, come down here to Smart Text Reflow. What Smart Text Reflow means is that it will create however many pages you need to fit the type. As you move the type, it will continue to create pages. So let's turn that on. We're going to limit this to primary text frames, which we have said that we want those in our document, right? By clicking that. And then we're going to say, okay. Now, when I go to place the text, I'm just going to click it and it's going to conform to these margins. Anywhere I click in this box with my cursor, it's got all the text loaded and it's going to make as many pages as it needs to fit it all as it flows through one text box after another by just clicking. Just takes a second. Now I have an 8-page document. Now, look what happens when I move anything, or let's say that I go to page 5 and I delete this particular text box because I want to put a photo there. Now do you see how it made 9 pages? And if I delete this text box on page 6, it takes a second, now it makes another page. So it's good that it will reflow that text, but that means that as you're working on the document, it's adding pages every time you move stuff, which you don't want because we know we need 12 pages. So the best way to do that is to keep your Smart Text Flow checked. Place your text. Let it round it out to 8 pages. Then go back to Preferences, go to Type, and uncheck that. Now that we have our text flowed through here, we don't want it moving around anymore. So now to get more pages, we can just, the document setup to 12 pages. Now, as we start to move text and it runs out of space here, it won't automatically flow to the next page because we've cut that off, but I'll show you how to flow it once we get there. So let's start from the top. First off, we know we don't want a photo on page 1 because that is the cover. So I can just delete it and the text will just kind of jam up on page 8. Then we have these Weimar beginnings, and I know that I want to put a photo on that left side also, so I'm just going to delete that text frame. So now when we get back down to page 8 and 9 on my pages panel, you can see that that's where it's run out. Now we can start what they call threading this text. So all these pages have a text box in them, but they're not connected anymore. So all you do when you're in your selection tool, you click on the plus sign, and if you click right on it, you'll see the text load up into your cursor and you just click in that box. And then that box will flow to this one. So we're still flowing, we just will not go beyond 12 pages, which is good. We'll keep styling it till we get to the end of page 11. All right, let's start working on styling this text. Before we do that, we have to actually give some real thought to what typeface we're going to use. So what we know about this booklet. It is from the Bauhaus school in Germany. So there's a couple of things we could do with just that information. If you go to Adobe Fonts, which is always my recommendation, go there first. Bauhaus was really into sans serif type for the most part, and they had some kind of geometric or clean looks to their type. So you could look there. The other thing you could do is you could start poking around. Adobe Fonts has a lot of resources here. So I'm just going to type in Bauhaus and see what happens. Hidden treasures. Here are some types that they recommend. They're feeling these are Bauhaus, which look at the difference in these. So this one has a really high X height, and it's got some kind of quirky letters. Look at the G descender, so that doesn't feel as much like Bauhaus. This one has a very low X height, very low, which gives it a nice style, and it also makes it feel a little bit old school. This one, new cable, this looks good, and this would work. You can see the G is simple but stylized. It doesn't feel too friendly. This could be interesting for the subheads or something. Okay, so you could do something with those. And then the Bauhaus look, let's look at what they've got here. And remember, these are all available to you for free. So they're not only telling you about them, but they're all yours for the taking. So let's look at some of these. These first two for a booklet are not a great idea. Now, you could use it maybe for the cover. This one, I don't think that that's going to have high readability marks. This one's kind of cool. That could be subheads. This one's a little bit too friendly. If you look at this X, I think for the type that we're talking about, it's going to be a little too friendly. We're talking about post-World War I and some kind of extreme conditions for design. This one also is, I think, a little too stylized. This might be good. Real text, new cable. Again, this one's stylized, but in kind of a clean way. Okay, so go through those and download a couple. You can actually activate all these fonts, just clicking that, and the whole set will be activated. Or you could go back to those individual ones that you liked and you could activate them also just by looking at the family. This one's already activated. Keep an eye on the family, 10 fonts, 6 fonts, 40 fonts. That's pretty nice. Okay, so I'm going to let you choose your typeface for this one. It's an important part of working on a project like this, choosing a typeface that's appropriate to the project. And you might want to take a look at the type style for this period. This is a search of Herbert Bayer. He was in charge of the print department at Bauhaus and made a lot of type innovations. So you might want to look through that. This is the alphabet that he came up with. But in general, you can see it's a sans serif typography. Here's an invite that he did. Here's a cover of some books about their work. So take a look at that too and get a feel for what the design characteristics were for the content that is this book. Okay, so let's start with the body copy. So I'm just going to select everything as the body copy. And you see how all these text boxes are linked together? I'm going to use Mrs. Eve's XL Modern. And for my body copy, remember we want copy between this as little as 9 point and as large as 12 point. It's a pretty unusual type that falls outside of that range. So this is at the top of that range, 12. I'm going to go down a little bit. And I might have to change this. I probably will have to change this as I start fitting things. But remember, that's the beauty of having a paragraph style, is that you can affect the whole thing. So let's just give it our best guess. I'm going to say I'm going to go 11 point, 10 point. And if I go, the recommended leading for body copy, remember, is 120 to 140%. So if I go 11, I can afford to go 14. That's about 100, I think about 130%. And that looks pretty good. Looks very readable. Looks like I'm going to fit everything. I'm still only on page 9, so it's not like it's a huge type. It looks serious to me, but kind of has style to it. So I like it. So I'm just going to call that my paragraph style right now for body copy. And I'll have a lot more things I'm going to do to that, but right now I'll just call this body copy. Perfect. Now the other thing I'm noticing is that there are paragraphs all through this. You can see where a line starts in a new line, which means I have to decide either I put in a tab on the first line or I put space in between the paragraphs. So what I'm going to do is put space in between. Since this is so clean looking, I'm not a fan of tabs. So I'm going to take this, and I can do this right in the properties panel. Just go down here to paragraph, and I'm just going to put one click of space underneath. Now, I might be able to get away with more as I fit this, but that's where I'm going to start, just so I can see where the paragraphs start and stop. Redefine that style. Now let's style our chapter headings. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm just going to style it first and then make it. So I'm going to keep this one in the same typeface, but I'm going to make it bold, and I'm going to go up quite a bit in size. I'm going to try 22 point. Doesn't really matter the leading because I'm going to put a lot of space after. I want to create some air between the title and where the body copy starts quite a bit. So I'm just going to keep going down until it feels right. And I'm hoping I have room for like 1.25. I might not. And then I'm going to make a new, and I'm going to call this headings. Now I just have to go in and find all the headings. Okay. So the other thing is, not only do I want space below the heading, but I want each of these chapters to start on its own page. I don't want it to run together like this. So I can actually handle that here also. So on this headings, we're going to open up the style sheet, and you're going to go to something called Keep Options. And keep options in a book like this are really useful, because what we're saying about this, about all these headings, anywhere where we use this style sheet, we want it to start on a new page like that. So we don't want to run it in. Everywhere this particular style called headings is, we want it to start on a new page. We're going to say OK, and that will start to give us an idea of where we're at with this. And if you look at the pages, you can see we're all the way on page 10, so we're pretty close to being spaced out. But now it's time to add in some images to see where we're at with our type spacing. Now is a good time to start putting images in, but before I start, I'm going to refer back to the little miniature comp I made before I started the file. And this just kind of gives me an idea of how I'm going to place the images within this booklet. Okay, so I have all my images gathered. I'm just going to start placing them according to my layout. Johan Itten is here. And I'm either going to set these on the margin or they can bleed off. That's kind of the pattern that I've established here. So this, now keep your links panel open so that you can see your effective PPI as you're placing your images. You can also change your panel options so that the effective PPI is on the column. Do you see how mine says 366? Do you see how the actual PPI, I didn't even have that checked? Because I don't really care about that. I just care about what the final number is. So that number is good. So now I'll just go through and place images. I want to have the text wrap around all of the images that are within this booklet. Now this one over to the left obviously doesn't need wrap, but all of these are going to. And instead of doing them one at a time, there's actually a way where you can set it up for each object like a style sheet. So let's go to Styles, and I want you to open up Object Style. Now you'll see these basic styles that sit in here. So for this one, all we want to do is we want to create a wrap. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on this wrap around the bounding box. And now when I hold the Option key and click on that, it gives me the options for how far around it I want to go. So I'm going to establish this for this box, but also for all of the images in the document. So right now I'm going to say 0.125, and we wrap it on both sides. So if it's on the edge, obviously that doesn't affect it. And then this is the wrap. Then I'm going to go to Object Styles. I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to call this Image Wrap. And we'll go down here to Text Wrap and Other. You can see our information is sitting in there, and I'll say OK. So now I just can quickly go through and place my images and just apply that style sheet. Okay, at this point, I just want you to size them so that all the type for each chapter sets at the end of that chapter and doesn't break onto a new page. Because if you look at our pages, we're actually in good shape. We've got the cover is blank. The first spread is the Weimar beginnings. And the second spread is the continuation and end of that chapter. Then we go to the transformation, the exhibition, Dessau, and then the back. So actually Dessau we just need to make a little bit shorter, which isn't much we could do. So we might have to take that paragraph style for the headings and alter it slightly. Right now we have space after. Let's go just a little bit less and see if that helps. There we go. So we'll redefine that. And that'll affect all of ours, but you can see it doesn't make much of a difference right now. So the next thing we want to check is to make sure that we have images that are all within the ballpark. So I don't see anything too small. This one is 1700, which is quite big. This one, the circle on page 4, can't go much bigger. This seems like it should actually be in an image box that's a circle. So I can go and grab this circle. I'm going to start it right at the center. I'm going to hold Option to bring it out from the center and Shift to keep it symmetrical. And I'm going to make it just a tiny bit bigger than the circle that's there. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to copy it, Command C, click on this circle, go to Edit, and paste into. So I think that works better. Now when I make that just like our other text box, it still is wrapping around the text box because it sees it as the bounding object. So let's take it and change that to wrap around the object shape, which is the circle. And that's a little better. The only problem now is that we have these weird wraps off to the side. So let's open up our text wrap options. Remember, just hold the Option or Alt key while you're clicking on this shape, and you'll get your text wrap options. The other way also is under Window, Text Wrap. Okay, so we have this now. It's an object shape, and it's going to let us only wrap around the outside edges. But even when we put the wrap on, it's letting letters get over here to the right, which we don't want. So what we do then is we go in and we click on the wrap itself. So we can put a little bit of space around that, but it's getting these weird letters that it's allowing to poke through. So all we have to do, this outside blue line is actually our wrap. So we can just kind of tweak that over until those disappear. And down here we can do the same thing. Just grab that. It's like it's a shape. I'm going to get rid of these. And I'm going to take it up so that that sentence underneath can complete. And that looks pretty good. All right, let's see what else is going on over here. And I just noticed that we don't have bleed on our document. So that's easy to fix. Yeah, that looks good. Let's see how we are with our, yep. So we're at a new chapter here. Looks like we have some more space on this one. So I would say we can make this a little bit larger. Take it maybe in the more middle area. And this same thing, we could go a little bit larger. Check our links and make sure we're still within our numbers. Yeah, we're well within our numbers. So we just want to make these bigger until we get to the point that we have no space left. All right, and that'll do it for now until we style the rest of our type. This one we have, looks like a little bit of space left here. We could certainly, with all this extra image, take this off the page. And this one we want to fit this in here. Let's see if we can make these a little bit bigger. All right, that works. Oh, we lost this one. Let me just delete that extra space. Now it's back, and this looks good. The only thing left to do now is to get in and do some advanced type styling.